Hello, hello, good evening. It's Monica from Life is Art, and it's Wednesday. Let's create, and we are going to be looking at the Evergreen collection, which is the featured collection for the month of December. And I'm just pulling up my catalog here. From the November-December catalog, we have the Evergreen collection with some beautiful greens and browns and all sorts of lovely things. And I have posted the link over on the Let's Create group. So hopefully everyone who joins me usually on Wednesday night is able to find the YouTube link there. And if you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching later on replay, you can say replay. So we're going to be using some of the paper collection. We're going to use some of the die cuts for this. We're also going to be using the Evergreen Cardmaking stamp, and we are going to be using the December stamp of the month, which is the Christmas snow globes. So lots of fun things going on there, and we are going to be making a step card. Not the same as a stepsister or a card for your step siblings. We're making a step card. And hey Mel, nice to see you're watching. And so we're going to start out with the base of our card is a piece of 7.5 by 5 1/4 cardstock. And I've chosen to do mine with white daisy. But of course you can use any color. There's gorgeous colors in this collection, all those lovely browns and greens and black and white. So I went with the white. And so we're going to start off by making some lines on this first. This card is going to involve a little bit of cutting and a little bit of scoring. But the first thing we want to do is draw some lines so that we know where we're going with our cutting and our scoring. So we're going to take our piece of white daisy, 7.5 by 5 1/4, and we're going to mark it along this 7.5 inch side. We're going to start by doing a very light line because we're going to erase it later. So just do a very light line at 1.5 inches. So I'm doing it just so I can barely see it. 1.5 inches. Then we're going to jump over to 4 inches. Sorry, I said 4. I'm at 3. We're going to 3 inches. And then we're going to go to 4.5. And then we're going to lightly mark it at 6 inches as well. So we're dividing it up into 5 equal chunks. So again, we made a line across at 1.5, 3 inches, 4.5, and 6 inches. Now, I will be posting all the measurements and numbers when I post the pictures. So if you're trying to rush and scribble them all down and you miss something, don't worry, we'll get to it eventually. Now I'm going to come in with my cutting blade and I'm going to rotate my paper around. So we're using the 5, let me just put it down a little bit. We're using the 5 1/4 inch side now. So whenever we talk about going along the 5 1/4 inch side, that means we're going to do all our measurements along this side. Does that make sense? So if we've drawn a line along the 7.5 inch side, we will, if we were walking along this side, we would be crossing those measurements. Does that make sense? So down here, we're going along the 5 1/4 inch side. And so let's do some cutting. We're going to make 2 cut lines. We're going to start at 1 3/4. Now we have to use our lines that we have drawn here to help us cut in the right place. So we're going to be cutting at 1 3/4, but we're not cutting from side to side. We're cutting in specific places. So we're going to cut from the 3 inch line, which is right here, down to the 6 inch line. So we're cutting from there to there, and then we're going to stop. So just from this 3-inch line to the 6-inch line. So that would be the second line down to the last line. Okay. Then we're going to move over to the 3.5-inch mark. So lining our ruler up at 3.5 inches. And the good thing about the Versamat is you can line it up here and here, so you know that you've got it as straight as you can. And this time at the 3.5-inch mark, we're going to cut from the 1.5-inch line right here down to the 4.5-inch line. So we're going to start at this first line at the top, and we're going to cross the 3-inch line and stop at the 4-inch line. Sorry, 4.5-inch line. There we go. Okay, now we need to do some scoring. So let's close that so we don't have any accidents. We're going to turn it back the way we were when we first started. So we're going to have our 7.5-inch line or length going across. And now we're going to do some scoring. And we're going to score along our 1.5-inch line. At the 1.5-inch line from the first cut here, this first horizontal cut. Sorry, from the top to the first horizontal cut. Sorry, I'm like reading ahead of myself. So we're going to score at 1.5 inches, and we're going to score from the top just down to that first cut line. Just like that. Then we're going to jump over to the 3-inch line. Right there. And we're going to score from the top down to the second cut line. So we're going to go all the way from the top down to the second cut line. Just like that. We're kind of making stair steps. So we went down. Now we're going down. Now we go to the next one. So this time we're going to score at the 4.5-inch line. And we're going to start not at the top, but at this first horizontal cut line. I'm just trying to get an eyeball on that. There we go. And we're going to score all the way from there down to the bottom. So let's score down to the bottom. Then our last one, we're going to move over here to the 6-inch line. And we're going to score from this second cut line down to the bottom. Just right there. So now if you could see that really well, it'll be a little bit difficult to see. We marked all of our markings across. Then we turned it and we cut from here to there and from there to there. Okay, so we've got 2 slits. Then we came back and we scored here to here, here to here, from this cut line to the bottom and this cut line to the bottom. So it's kind of made like a little diagonal stair step happening. Before we do any creasing on those score lines, we're going to bring in our eraser and just erase our pencil lines. You want to make sure that you didn't do it too dark and that your eraser is a good eraser for erasing on. There are some erasers that are good, and there are some erasers that just make a mess. Have you noticed that? And this particular pencil, I know it's a Studio Graphite, so it probably came from the dollar store, but it had a wonderful eraser on it. So I've worn it almost right out working on projects. Yeah, Mel, it makes sense, right? When you're going along a line. Okay, so now we've got our 2 cut lines here and here, and we've got our vertical score lines. We need to do some folding. So this very first score line up at the top, left-hand side, we're going to create a mountain fold. And to create a mountain fold, we're going to push the score line up the mountain from behind, and we're just going to bend it. We're not going to crease it hard, okay? Our next one, we're going to create a valley fold right here. So we're going to push our score line down into the valley. So you push it down from the front. This next one, below that first cut line, we're going to create a mountain fold. So we're pushing from behind, we're pushing the score line up the mountain. And then this second one right here, along this same line, we're going to make a valley. So we're pushing the score line down into the valley. And you can see what's happening here. It all kind of wants to bend the right way. And now we're going to create another mountain fold here and a valley fold here on this last one. Okay, so you can see now we're starting to get that stair step going. Isn't that fun? Mel has definitely noticed. Awesome. Yeah, I think she's referring to the erasers. Hey, Mom, nice to see you're watching. So now what we want to do is we want to kind of gently collapse this down. But we want to make sure that everything is lining up nicely because, you know, I don't use a scoreboard. So what I like to do, I'm out of the view, is I like to make sure that these are lining up and that they're staying square. And the easiest way to do that is to put it on the Versamat and just make sure everything lines up. And it's actually looking really well. I did a better job on this one than I did on one previously. And then you can come in with your bone folder and push down on all those crease lines. And you can flip it over and you can just make sure everything is creased down nice and good. Okay? And there is the base for our step card. So now all it is decorating. And the first thing I want to do is I want to make this look a little bit vintagey, give it sort of that old vibe. And so I'm bringing in some Toffee ink and a blending tool, and I'm going to kind of make it back out to the original shape here. And I'm going to ink on the edges. And I'm going to do a decent amount of inking. So instead of putting my sponge right against the edge like this, perpendicular, I'm going to come at an angle so that some of it wraps around to the front. And I kind of want it to look messy. So sometimes we do it so that it's all very uniform. This one, I'm trying to get that sort of dirty, it's been around for a while. You know, you found it in the attic kind of look. It's just kind of a vibe. I know some of you like this vibe, and others of you like things very clean and, you know, clean and simple kind of vibe. So you can decide for yourself whether you want to ink your edges or whether you want to leave them as they are, crisp and white. Totally up to you. But I'm going for this vibe tonight. So all the way around. And then we also have to deal with all these angles. So all we're going to do is we're going to fold. And I always find it's easiest if you stick one finger in behind and then bend it. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go brush, 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 brush. Back and forth like this. And that's going to get ink on both sides of that crease. Okay? Gives you a look. And now this one is an inset one. But we're going to kind of force it to behave otherwise. We're just going to do the same technique with all of them. I know, a little bit of paper mistreatment there. And then we're going to come down to this next one. Give it the same, we'll brush it back and forth technique like that. And again, for this one that's folded the other way, sometimes you have to push the other papers out of the way. Give it some inky goodness right there. And let's come around to these ones. Some more inky goodness. There we go. And then the last one. Now you don't have to do this with Toffee ink. You could do this with a gray. You could do it with another color if you wanted to do like tone on tone. So if you'd had like a sage cardstock, you could do it with sage ink or, you know, pine ink or any kind of thing like that. Now, there's also going to be some gaps. And you don't know where I'm going with this, but there's going to be some gaps in pattern paper. And the first gap is going to be right here, following this line. So I'm just going to take my blending tool and I'm going to kind of dab gently-ish so that I don't get too many harsh circle lines, but that just so that there's sort of a consistent bit of ink there. Okay. And then we're also going to do that over here. Just dab, 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 dab. just to add some color. I could have my all-purpose mat under there. Oh, I forgot to do these horizontal lines. How many people noticed that? And we're like, wonder if she's going to do the horizontal ones. Yep, I am. So we're going to do the horizontal ones now. We did those vertical ones already. Add some inky goodness. And this is going to look weird right now, but when we get our pattern paper on there, it's going to do the magic. The magic will happen. All right. And last one there. And then we also have a spot here and a spot here. So we're going to do that same, just dab, dab, dab. You could do this with a wedge of the round sponge as well, just to add a bit of color. It's not as dark as the inking on the edges, but that's okay. We're just adding a little bit of aging. We're aging. Alrighty. That is looking good. And everybody says, well, at least she says it's looking good. All right, so we're going to come in now with some pattern paper. The first two pieces are cut to 2 3/4 by 3 1/4, and I use this beautiful pattern paper from the Evergreen collection. It's got leaves and boughs and pine cones, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to ink the edges. In fact, I will kind of bring all the pieces in as I ink the edges, because inking edges is one of those things. Once you start, you can't stop. You kind of got to just keep on keeping on, and you'll see how it all comes together. So there's one piece. This is the second. Again, 2 3/4 by 3 1/4. All the way across. There we go. Lovely. And then we also need a couple more pieces. And I went ahead with that same pattern. And these ones are 1 1/4 by 1 1/2. And we actually are going to have 7 of these, but I'm going to use different patterns. So I'll kind of put them on here, how I'm going to put them. And then you'll see where we're going with this. So these are all 1 1/4 by 1 1/2, and we're going to have a total of 7. So we're going to do 2 that are the same pattern I've already used, just because I really like it. So we're going to put those in the opposite corners. And then we're going to have 2 of these lovely dots from the pattern paper as well. We're going to ink the edges. Again, same size as those other 2. Just inky, inky. And we're going to put those there. And there. Okay. And then we need, what did I miss? Oh, no. Sorry. This one goes here. One right above the other, skipping the middle. Now these 3 that are going to go on a diagonal here, we're going to ink the edge. And this is the pine pattern paper from the Evergreen collection that has little tiny leaves on it. And those are going to go down this sort of steppy goodness that's happening across the center of our card. What do you think about all these patterns as they're coming together? Are you liking the look of it? Kind of looks rustic to me. Kind of vintagey. Kind of old world. Kind of fun. There we go. Inky, inky. We're going to come back to that ink again, so we're not putting it too far away. Okay, now we need to adhere all these down. Maybe I'll go ahead and put some adhesive on here all at once, and then we can just start sticking. There we go. I think I meant to do this ahead of time, but that's okay. Now, I have seen patterns for this before that were a little bit different size. Now, this will not fit in a standard size envelope, just to warn you. It's very close, but it's not exact. And the height will fit, but the width won't fit because I believe it's 4.5 inches wide. And I did try, because I did change all the measurements on it from what I had seen other people do. I was trying to get it to that standard card size so that it will fit in a regular envelope. But if you do, you get really weird measurements. And I tried to keep my measurements as standard as possible. Yes, Ina, I was thinking about you. Because I know some of you don't like 8ths and 16ths and all that jazz. I don't even like 16ths. But, so that was my, what do I want to say? That was sort of my consolation or concession for not having it fit in an envelope, was that I was able to at least make it so that it wasn't weird sizes. All right. And we're just kind of centering these in the middle of the area in which they're getting attached, leaving a bit of that white daisy with all the lovely inking going around it. And with most pattern papers on this collection, there is no sort of right or wrong direction, which is really nice. So you can just kind of flip it around till you're happy with how it looks. And we will get these stuck down. You could use liquid glue for this, but I find I just end up getting gluey. So I prefer the double-sided adhesive for this. What's your preference? Are you a liquid gluer or a double-sided adhesive gluer? Mel's saying it looks great and she'll try this card in case Karen picks something complicated. Yes, you're thinking about the 30-minute card making stash dash for like a fancy fold. Definitely a good one to have in the back of your mind. Yep. I know Marilyn is a good one for having lovely fancy fold cards too. And I'm always impressed. You guys always impress me with your creativity and the things that you come up with. And the fact that at 30-minute card making stash dash, we can all be working from the same 4 parameters and all of our cards will look different and they will all look gorgeous. It's just awesome. All right, last one going down. Now we get to do some decorating. And for this, I want to do a little bit of stamping. I'm going to start with the Evergreen Cardmaking stamp, and I want this big cluster of trees, which I am loving. I was explaining to somebody that I didn't have sort of a realistic-ish type of tree, evergreen, previously, and so when I saw this particular stamp set, I thought, yeah, gonna have to get that because I want some trees. All right, gonna load this up on my block, and I'm gonna stamp this on some scrap paper with some pine ink. So I've got my pine ink here. Gonna ink up my trees and just make sure, yep. There was something on my stamp earlier, but when I cleaned it, it came off. A little piece of dust or something. There we go. Stampy, stampy. I should be using the back of my Versamat because that makes the best stamping surface, but there we go. And we can wipe that off. Mel likes adhesive, not glue. Yep. I'm the same. I mean, I use glue for some things, like for little fiddly bits, but I find I end up, you know, making a muck of things if I do it everywhere. Then I'm going to bring in the Intense Black ink, and I'm going to grab my stamp of the month, which is the Christmas Snow Globes, and I'm going to use this one, which is an upside-down mason jar with a front door in it, and if you know me, you know that I like doors. I am very fond of doors and windows, and this has both. doors and windows. So it's like a twofer. So let's take this one off the block. Always want to walk your stamps off your block when you're moving them so that you don't pull anything that shouldn't be pulled. And then I always lay it down, let it rest for a second, and then pick it up with the block. So let's ink this up, and I'll have to do a good job inking it because I really need to re-ink my pad. I've been doing a lot of stamping, Christmas cards and such. And then let's go ahead and stamp this on a piece of white daisy. Like so. Looks good. Set that aside. And then there's one other stamping I need to do. And I'm thinking that I didn't get a piece of paper ready for it. So I'm going to use this piece of paper. So what I want to stamp is my words for the front of my card. And I'm going to stamp the season's greetings from the Evergreen Cardmaking stamp set. I've got that loaded on a block. We're going to stamp it in pine. Turn it around so it's the right way up. And let me just stamp that on there. And we'll just have to trim it after the fact. And that's okay too. I can even wash this one off. There we go. And let me grab my little trimmer. Trim this up. And I'm going to leave a little bit extra space on this side. You'll see why in a minute. Throw those little bits in my drawer. I like to keep my little scrappy bits. You never know when you need just a tiny little piece. Okay, so we've got our season's greeting stamped. We're going to ink the edges. Yes, yes, yes. We're going to ink it with the Toffee. And I'm going to do generous inking on this all the way around. So it gets that nice vibe going. There we go. And then we need to do some coloring on this stamped image. We've got this cute little door. Let me lift it up so you can see. Look at that cute little door. It's got a wreath, a little tree, all sorts of fun things happening on that one from the stamp of the month. And I'm going to be using my tri-blend markers to add some color to this. The first thing I want to color is the brick. So I'm going to grab my red brown and I'm going to start with the mid color of the red brown. Now this is not going to be fine and detailed coloring on the brickwork. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of swoosh, 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 just here and there, because the brickwork is kind of just hit and miss on this. So I don't want to get too detailed with what I'm doing. Just adding a little bit of color around the bricks that are there. Like that. Just sort of scratchy, scratchy. And then I'm going to jump to the dark. And I'm going to add just a little nick of dark in the corner of each of those patches of the red-brown that I just added. Just to say there's a little shadow or variation in color or what have you. Okay? Just like that. Easy peasy. Quick and easy. Then we're going to take our dull green and we're going to go for our darkest dull green, which I think is a nice color with the pine. We're going to color the wreath around the door or on the door. And I'm going to kind of ignore the ribbon. I'm just going to color the wreath in because it's pretty tiny. And then I'm also going to color this little tree, little sort of topiary type evergreen that's beside the door. Just color it in. There's a few balls on it and there's a star on top. So I'm just coloring in the green bits and then I'll bring in some dark red and I'm going to use the lightest of the dark red. I'm going to add color to the little balls. There we go. And then I'm also going to color my door. with this. And again, I'm not going to fill it all in. I'm going to kind of be a little bit brushy with this and leave some white gaps like that. I'm going to turn it because what I want to do is I want to be able to fill in the panels as well. Don't forget inside the wreath because that will show red. But I want the panels to still show up. So I'm going to leave little bits of white here and there so that it doesn't look like I just took a thing and covered the whole thing. If that makes sense. I don't want it to look like I covered everything. So there's a little bit of a close-up on that. So you can still see all the different little bits of the door. Okay, and then let me grab actually this dark red-brown again, and I'm just going to color in the pot that this tree is sitting in with the dark red-brown. I'm not going to color the trunk or anything. And then I'm going to take this gold brown and just do a little dot on the star and also on the doormat that actually says Merry Christmas on it if you look really closely and kind of squint at it. It's very tiny. And then the last thing, almost the last thing, I'm going to grab my brown gray blend and I'm going to color the step with the lightest brown gray. And then use the mid to do the shadow edge, like that. And then I'm also going to use the mid to color the sealer on the jar, like that. And then I'm going to use the lightest brown gray to just kind of draw lines where all these little lines are on the mason jar. Just gonna, and you can tell it's running out of ink. Running out of marker in there. Just to add a little bit of color. And then also we're going to go around this door frame. Not going to do where the windows are. I'm just adding a little bit of color so it doesn't look stark white. Like that. And a little bit down here as well. And there we go. That's it. We're going to leave the rest. And we're going to have to fussy cut this. Let me grab my scissors. We're going to get rid of some of this excess to start. And this is an easy shape to fussy cut. This is one, if you're not a fussy cutter, it'll be a good one to practice on. Just a couple little ridges on the jar. And then you're just going to go around the top like that. Just follow the edge. It's not even evenly drawn. It's done in a sketchy way. There we go. There's our little snow globe. And then we're also going to trim out the trees. So let's go all the way across. We're going to create a little bit of a base and then go in and around. So you notice I didn't fussy cut the bottom of this nice and close. I didn't try to follow the shape. I just kind of came out at the end to create like a little foot. And then we're going around the branches. Just lots of pivoting in and out, up and around. And when we get too much paper in here, then we snip to the edge. Keep going. There we go. Down in the home stretch. Too much paper. There we are. Now we're going to create a foot on this side, so just bump it out a little bit, curve it around, and there we go. Have you ever done that when you've got something that's sort of scenery related? Create a little footing for it so that it just kind of looks like it's supposed to be like that. Well, we've inked everything else, so we're going to go ahead and ink around our snow globe. so. And we're going to ink around our trees. And you kind of gotta go in and around the edges. It doesn't matter if you get too much on in amongst the trees. Trees are very forgiving. We're kind of making it look like ephemera as opposed to just a stamped image. There we go. Alrighty, that's that. Let's bring our card back in and we can add those little bits of decoration. So these trees, I'm not going to pop them up with foam tape. Just going to add some adhesive on the back. And these are going to go in this upper right panel. Like so. And you just got to make sure that everything can still fold. So that one, you can see it's going to be partially hidden. So we've tucked it in behind there. And then this one is going to come out the front. Let's get some adhesive on that one. And what we're going to do is we're going to stick it here so that it kind of comes across, because those two panels are staying together like that. So that kind of gives us a reason for having this little piece stick out. And I think it looks kind of cool that way. Oh, I already added the adhesive. Then we're going to grab some foam tape. And we're going to pop up our jar with the foam tape. And we can do that because it's going to be at the front of this and it won't be affected. It won't affect the opening and closing of the card. So let's grab a few pieces of foam tape to stick on there. Maybe 3. It's a tallish jar. There we go. And stick this down. We'll see you, Mel. Sorry. You gotta go. No worries. We love replay, don't we? All right. So this last one, or this piece, is going to sit right on top of the end of that season's greetings. So that's why when I stamped it out, I left a little bit extra on this edge. So I knew that there would be enough for it to tuck right under without having any of that cut edge showing. And then I want just 2 more little decorations. And I've got these little snowflakes from the die cuts. And I'm going to, you guessed it, I'm going to ink them just around the edges again. So you got to be kind of gentle with these. And ink all around. Just add a little bit of that aging. You know, they talk about anti-aging sometimes with with scrapbooking and card making. We actually add age. It's like when you have a Halloween party and you purposefully put dust and spider webs on things. I don't even have to decorate for a Halloween party at my house sometimes. There's just random dust and spider webs in weird places already. So we're going to attach those on. And for this, I will use some liquid glue. Going to do my trick where I put a little bit of adhesive on my hand and then grab my tweezers. And I'm going to tap it in the glue. Stick that on there. Nice little snowflake to go with our season's greetings. Tap, tap, tap. And this one's going over here. You will notice that I'm not putting anything on these 3, and that's because those are the steps, and they're going to be sort of hidden from sight this way, but we want them to do their thing. So I like that I did them with the dark pattern paper to give it that kind of look. And then the last thing we're going to do is add a little bit of an embellishment here. We've got our Silver Bells dots, and look at that. I just have just enough of these white ones left. So we're going to grab a big one and stick it there, and a medium one, and then let's grab this last big one. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a triangle. So we're going to stick it up here above our tree. It kind of looks like a little moon sitting above the tree with these white sort of iridescent-y Silver Bells dots. And there we go. That is our completed step card. We started out with our white daisy, which doesn't look like white daisy anymore. Oh, I just realized what that one piece of paper was that I cut up. One moment, we need to grab another piece of paper because that one that I cut to put the sentiment on was actually one that I need. Let me just grab it. We're not done yet. We needed a 2 3/4 by 3 1/4, same as what our large pattern pieces are. This is why it's good to have that supply of cardstock right there in my drawer. And we're going to ink it up because we inked everything else. Ink, ink, ink. Ink, ink, ink. Ink, ink. There we go. This actually might be French vanilla paper, which is perfectly fine. We're going to stick it on the back. We're going to create kind of a spot to write a message. Obviously, the whole back could be used to write a message, but you could decorate the back if you want. I am just going to have a spot here that's a little bit different just to write the message on. So we're just going to stick that on right there like that. Now it's done. We started out with our white daisy. We did our cutting and our scoring and our measuring, and then we did a whole lot of inking to give it that vintagey, old world, kind of romantic look. And then, of course, adding in all of our lovely pattern papers from the Evergreen collection, some stamped images from Evergreen and the stamp of the month, and also the die cuts and some Silver Bells dots, and a little bit of a spot on the back set aside to write the message, which is nice. If you want to have a card that's on display like this, but you don't want maybe to see everybody to see your personal message, that works just great. So I love how this looks when it stands up and you can see those nice sort of stair step design happening, and it's nice and stable. It's not gonna, fall over all the time. And so there we have it, our step card. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that come together, and we will see you again soon. Toodaloo. Bye.